But you know what I think, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but we would always plan a family outing or to go, to the zoo, to, whatever, or just, go to our family's lake house. And either there would be the disruption that came before you left, or you'd have this wonderful day.
Right.
And you'd come home, you'd pull in the garage or the driveway, and it would all go downhill. And you sit there and you think, why? Why did I even try? Because they didn't remember all the good things they did. They only remembered maybe the one little thing that they felt was unjust. And that's probably the hardest thing that we've ever had to deal with, is because we didn't mind doing it. It was just, could you just not ruin it?
And we're going to come back to that because that's a toughie as far as parenting is concerned. The disappointing setbacks, when you've made progress or think you've made progress. Continue. I interrupted.
Oh, no, that's fine. But, I think that's one of the hardest trials is and I deal with parents every day. And that's what they say. It's just like you see that one little glimmer and you think, wow, maybe this medicine's going to work or whatever else. And it lasts for a month or two. And then all of a sudden it goes back downhill again. And, I think that's like the defeatist part of it.
Yeah.
But in our defense, relationships are not easy
Oh, not at all.
for anybody.
No.
I mean, go to Mental Health of America's website and on one of the drop-down menus, look at relationships. There's the learning of boundaries and limitations and conflict management and anger management and so forth. So codependency and all those kinds of dynamics that work their way into everybody's relationships. And we're dealing with these layers of things. We've got other children and the inner dynamics of all that, and so I got to say my next question was going to be, as we lead into both internal relationships and external relationships as far as our children is concerned. Spending a moment on internal relationships, I haven't always been the greatest dad. I know that's shocking to you. But for starters,
I think we all have our moments.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think there's any of us that could say we've been perfect.
there have been times I didn't believe in Maggie enough. When she was 9, Katie was 7, I think they got bikes for Christmas. And I was overwhelmed with how I was going to teach this visually impaired one-armed girl to ride a bicycle. And my dad came for a visit. We were living in St. Louis at the time, and I drove up in front of the house. We lived in a house perched on a modest hill, but with a steep driveway. And I heard, "Hey, Dad, watch this." And there is Grandpa doing what I would never have guessed Grandpa to do, that I didn't have the nerve to do. He isn't just holding them and letting them go on their bikes down the steep driveway. He's giving them a push, including my daughter with disabilities. And she's rolling down this driveway. I didn't know how I was going to teach her. And here, my heart is in my throat, watching her ride a bicycle and doing just fine. One of many things, times I thought, why? And my question is going to be, why do we do that? Why do we, as parents, doubt, shelter, protect, overprotect? You got any memories of seeing your children do things that you never expected them to do, exceeding expectations?
They all have, all 4 of them have. And you sit there and you think, oh my gosh, my oldest daughter, Tiffany, she's 35, and she gave up all of her friends doing things on after school weekends and stuff because she loved history so much that she took Latin and she did foreign language festivals. Really? And while all of her other friends were out at the mall, she would be at home watching the History Channel, trying to decide how she was going to make Metusa look for the next, the next event. Kim is a dancer. She took ballet since she was 3. She gave up a lot of her friendships and a lot of her relationships to go to dance 6 days a week, and to be told when you meet your when you finally have reached the conservatory, to be told you don't have the body, your dream's gone. But they persevered, and they didn't stop. When people would say, you should start smoking, you should start doing this, and all those things, they kept on going, and they made their dreams come true. And so, yeah, Lexi's a football player.
That's neat.
Cody is going to be a longboard rider.
And you didn't pick football out as a sport for her?
Oh, George and I are very adamant about no football.
Well, I think some of our successes were some of our just impressions of whatever other people were thinking or would think about. And that was
George is very big on that.
That was always something. The very first time that we went to the Infant Action Program was the very first time we had Brody. We didn't take him. I mean, we were embarrassed. This was we were it was all new to us. But we walked in and we sit down, look around, and there was 20 parents in the room and 19 of them brought their kids. And we, but it was it's some things that we fear, or we're thinking about what other people think. And these are some of the things that Brody teaches us, is he doesn't think that sometimes. And it's a disability at one end, but yet it's also a strength. Yes, and that's one of the things that we've seen. So, but we've seen a lot of that.
And my husband's that way. He very much worries about what other people see or perceive, and there are many times that he won't do things because what if they act out?
One of the most heart-wrenching moments of my life, we were in family therapy, and the psychiatrist said, as Maggie was approaching her 16th birthday, he would like to see her try and drive. And I said, this girl, she's visually impaired. He said, I think she can do it. And Sharon, my wife, said, I'd like to see her try. I just purchased a new car, Saturn. So I took her out on the most vacant lot I could find anywhere, and she backed into a brick wall with my new car. Didn't hurt it too awfully much. But even so, I agreed to see this thing through, and I took her to the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and the police officer couldn't have been kinder. And he didn't know Maggie from anything, and gave her the visual test, which she proceeded to fail. And together we got to say, that means you can't drive. You know what a rite of passage it is for every 16-year-old to drive. And we went home, and on the porch, I held my daughter sobbing. And to this day, I've known some painful moments. That's right up there at the top. I'm never going to be able to drive and be like other people. And we want to protect our children. Believe they can do anything, but protect them from those things that hurt.
We see the mean side of people, so they don't see
that. And we've had our hurts, so we don't want them to be hurt, especially when
like George.
Yeah, he doesn't. He knows that Cody can't rationalize or understand a lot of things, and so when you would see people who were using him and or doing bad things, and Cody would swear that they were his best friend, and you'd sit there and you'd say, yeah, well, maybe not necessarily, Then so it's hard.
Internally, I hear you all saying you've known as family, as parents to son or daughter, and among siblings, that internal relationships are tough. This hasn't been a walk in the park. I don't mean to.
No, and I'm sure it hasn't been. Even the well-meaning people sometimes end up being the ones that can hurt sometimes the worst.
I guess our vision of inclusion, was that we wanted to model what it looked like. And, in our educational journey, we had, we had the expectation and we modeled it. And that was modifying assignments every night. And, Kelly is the master of it. I was amazed at what she could take, in a fifth grade assignment, middle school assignment, and turn it into something that was, digestible for Brody, yet, also age appropriate. And it was just, there was times when that was the teacher's job, and they didn't do it, but we did it day in and day out, and it brought on some arguments from time to time.
Oh, yes.
You think?
And the thing about it is, we would yell at each other. But our anger was really towards the institution or the educational program.
It's not the child. The child is the innocent part of it. But we put in the IEP. You will do schoolwork at school, homework at school. I couldn't take any more disruption from that, and that's true. You have to sometimes know your limits and know what you can do. Thank God He had you.
And that's all part of the parenting responsibility, is teaching and growing and so forth. And it sometimes we're off. But I wanted to wrap up with a couple of things. We're calling this Veteran Parents of Disabilities. If you had a couple that has just, or parents or caregivers who have just received a recent diagnosis, you've been at this for years. We've been at this for years. What would you share with the newcomer that's in shock, in pain? I know sometimes words can't say anything.
No.
But maybe they ask. What, in your experience, what could you share with me?
Well, my word would be network. Get into a network of parents that are sharing those same experiences, whether it's a support group or an agency. That's been the powerful, healing tool for us. And as I tell parents, you grieve when you hear that diagnosis, but that grieving never stops. You go up and down. So just because you had it when you first heard the diagnosis, you also have grieving periods. And what helps you move to survival, I would say, or hope, is when you hear stories about other parents who are ahead of you maybe in the game or have had the same experiences, and you realize that you're not crazy. I think I'm okay. They have the same feelings. We have the same arguments. We have the same frustrations. So that has been, I think, our most powerful tool for, just plunging through and not giving up at times where, you think to yourself, should I push because I know in my heart it's right? Or do I stop because I know that person may never change? And then you just keep pushing, and then you might have a little baby step of a change, and that's where you might have left your mark. So that would be my.
The other thing too, and I would think to ask for help, and it's not so much in a desperation standpoint, but therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, OT therapy. Those are things that we did as husband and wife, mother and father.
Because men are especially guilty of not needing help.
Possibly,
So,
like but boys, it's and we took on the whole load, and that throwing the homework, and we have a great extended family and extended family, and we oh, we're too proud to ask. Can you, go out and teach them what the therapy is, or teach them how, the speech thing, or just come over and read, just to take some of that frustration off because of the, the rate of being
sure.
successful, and sometimes you're too proud to ask, but I would say that would be one thing.
Yeah.
Ask for some help.
Advocating definitely is most important. Not being ashamed, knowing that it's okay to talk. And if somebody asks, tell them the whole
Right.
story. I will admit, because of our age, there are a few times when they say, Grandma, and I'll go, no, Mom. And I'll go, Mom. Yeah, it's like, and I just leave it there. But then there are the other times that I explain the situation. But you just have to go with it. Every day's different, but your gut, your heart tells you what you have to do. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right.
I learned that.
Yeah.
That's a struggle at
It
first.
is,
Yeah,
it
because
is.
you're thinking, oh, it's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nami has this wonderful story, and it talks about this couple getting ready to go to Italy for this trip they've planned for 1,000 years, And the plane, they're getting ready, learning all the tour books and everything. The plane gets ready to land. And the stewardess comes and says, I'm sorry, there's been an alteration in the plans. We're not going to Italy, we're going to Holland. And they're going, Holland? Why there? And she goes, well, it's not a bad place. It's very pretty. They have tulips and windmills and everything. But you need a new guidebook. You're going to meet people that you never thought you would know, that you would ever meet. But it's okay. But you are never going to forget the trip that you were supposed to go on. And when your friends come back and tell you what a wonderful time they had in Italy, you're always going to have that pain. You're always going to have that hurt. But you have to embrace the good things in Holland. And actually, a mother whose child had Down syndrome wrote this story, this little poem type thing. And it really means, I think it can apply to everyone, And I love, when I go out into my talks, I read that because I think it applies to everyone, not just one disability or one dream that was taken away. And, that's what I live by that.
You said earlier, Dorothy, that wouldn't wish disability on anyone, and I concur 100%. At the same time, my life is nothing like I would have expected because of Maggie Delaney,
Oh, sure.
and I wouldn't trade being her father
Amen.
for anything.
I've said 1,000 times over, we would do it all again. We had choices.
He has made me a better person.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no question about it.
I wanted to share this story in closing thoughts. The story about Christopher DeVink and his brother, his sibling, being bedfast, his brother Oliver. He said, I grew up in the house where my brother was on his back in his bed for 32 years, in the same corner of his room, under the same window, but just beside the same yellow walls. He was blind, mute, his legs were twisted. He didn't have the strength to lift his head or the intelligence to learn anything. And DeVink says, I asked my father, how did you care for Oliver for 32 years? And his father said it was not for 32 years. He said, I just asked myself, can I feed Oliver today? And the answer was always, yes, I can. Thank you all for sharing this.
Oh,
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us.
for having us.